And we were just cleaning out a room one day and I found them and oh no.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And we won't ever do it again.
No, that they have the best behaved dogs I've ever seen. They were off leash, just walking through crowds and crowds of people. They were just laser focused on going from point A to point B.
Well, good morning. We are here on Read It and Eat It in the Library, the podcast where we talk about books and food and public libraries. This morning, my guest is Beatriz Bonilla Sand. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
The book that she chose is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. Tell us why you picked it.
I looked back at my review that I wrote January 2023, and I said, I just feel warm and fuzzy. And it is just a very hopeful book, but also a very funny book and very empowering at the same time. It just has a lot of different elements to it that just make it a really fun read, and I figured it would be fun to discuss as well. And I liked that it was a quality young adult novel as well that I would recommend to students as well.
Absolutely. I loved the book. Pretty much right from the prologue. I think it was on page 2 where it says, "Fate is for suckers, love is for planners." And I'm like, I'm in. I'm so in. And like you mentioned, YA books, I honestly think the world would be a better place if more people read quality YA books. Mm-hmm. I think that, like recently I kind of got away from young adult books because my kids were young teenagers, and mm-hmm. then some of the situations were a little bit too real for me, and I didn't want to get into that or think about that. Mm-hmm. But now they're older teenagers, and this is a YA book that one that I haven't read for a long time. This is a first read for me, but I haven't read a good YA book for a long time. And then it was just there, like you mentioned, there's a hopefulness. There is not that everything is real, not that there's no problems. There was very real problems, but there was just a freshness that I think is in so many good YA books, that it's a fantastic reminder for adults that, yeah, like there are real problems, but like self-discovery is important, and figuring out what your opinions on things. It's a good reminder as an adult to not take yourself too seriously, but that there is value in other things other than the seriousness of life.
Taking off all of your accomplishments and goals. And I also liked in this reread, I think I appreciated the value of having good friends, just really supportive, understanding friends that, oh, we see that you're having a moment, what do you need? You're still the best. And I thought that was really encouraging and fresh to have for somebody of that age, because I have that now, and I probably did have it then, but just to recognize it in a different light was really fun for me too.
Friends are pretty life-changing in that respect, right? Sounding board and different opinions, I love that. So right near the beginning, Emily says about Valentine's Day, "There's nothing wrong with enjoying the materialistic side effects of the celebration." What are your thoughts on Valentine's Day?
Well, I didn't have a Valentine's Day until I was 27, because I'd met my husband in that previous year, so it never has held any significant importance for either of us, but it's an excuse to go out to our local diner. So we live south of town, so in Marsden there's a place called the Prairie Diner, and it's exactly what you want it to be. And we show up and they know what my husband's order is, what my dessert choice is, and that's just it's a lovely time for us, and that's basically an excuse to go there. But I mean, if you want to exploit the materialistic aspects of the holiday, go for it, but it's nothing that's ever been especially pertinent in my life.
Yeah, I feel very, very similar. And Erin, on the other hand, feels very strongly about Valentine's Day.
What a musician.
Yeah, it's fun. What are your thoughts on true love? Does true love exist?
I'm a cynic about that, in that I've seen too many things now. If you would have asked me this 20 years ago, I would have been like, of course. But I think it just has to be an active choice past day 1 and day 365 and year 10. It just continually has to be an active choice, and I feel like I've also seen that there's been moments of right person, wrong time, or compatibility as really good friends and really exciting bursts of something, but not necessarily long term. So I feel like there's just a different variety, and you can have a lot of special connections with many people. But true love is picking someone that it could work with, and you are going to make it happen.
Yeah.
But like a soulmate is not something that I currently prescribe to.
Yeah.
Sure.
I believe, yeah, my opinions are very similar to yours. This is a fairly regular discussion in our house because my girls are both very one true love. And both Erin and I are like, well, we love each other desperately and deeply and forever. And we could also love somebody else desperately, deeply, and forever. But just this morning, I kind of had a thought, like, does true love necessarily have to mean one true love? Because if it's one true love, then no, I don't believe that. But maybe it can be many true loves, and then I'm on board with that. Maybe.
Yeah. Because I feel a certain deep, deep love for some of my friends.
Absolutely.
And something that is, this is a soul connection. This is something that's long term and lasting, and a different type of understanding and a different type of mutual connection that I don't have with my husband, because he and I do not see eye to eye on certain musical theater pieces. It's just not something that we share. But for other people, I do. So it's different connections with different people. And I will quote Mindy Kaling in the Mindy Project when she says, best friendship is a tear. And I feel like true love can also be a tear.
That makes so much sense to me. I love that concept. Yeah, I'll present that to my kids. So Emily in the book has confession strips that she keeps in a box in her closet, and each chapter begins with some random confession that is mostly not even a confession, it's just a fun reminder of life experiences. And I thought it was a really interesting way of recording one's life. How do you record your life?
I've never been one for journaling, not because I haven't tried. I've tried multiple times, and I have multiple unfinished journals, like 2-3 days, and then just peters out. So that's never been something that's worked for me long term, but thankfully I have, again, many good friends that I can just, those confessions or those thoughts or those, how do you call them, the inside thoughts or the invasive, intrusive thoughts, that I can send them to them. So at the end of my life, they'll all have to come together and piece together my confession strips and be like, no, I got that one too.
I love that.
And big moments, big celebratory moments or whatever, those are pictures on Instagram and stuff like that. But the less world-friendly ones might just have to be found amongst my people.
And that's a valid way of recording and sharing one's life, absolutely. I too would love to be a journaler, but I am not.
No.
I used to record like day-to-day vacation things, just details to like almost prove to myself that we spent a boatload of money on this trip, so I'm going to prove to myself that we did all of the things that made this expenditure worthwhile. And then that kind of sucked the life out of a good portion of the vacation, so I stopped that. Yeah, and I also have many, many journals with the first 3 pages completed in great detail. And then That's just not fun.
Tried our best.
But I do have a recording of every book I've read for the past 20 years.
Wow. Is that like a specific journal, or what do you do?
It's a journal set by
Yes.
his point. And so I write the author, the title, when I read it, where I got it from, and just a few thoughts. I really like quotes and kind of things that get me thinking, so I write that down. And then, because I read a lot, I don't have very specific, vivid memories of a good portion of the books, because I just go through them too quickly. But it is very fun to look back through those journals, and that's something that I think won't bother me after I'm gone, if that still exists. Whereas I'm not sure that a boatload of my personal vivid details that I would write down in a journal, that it's just not what I want to share with the world.
There are some from, I want to say, when I was a teenager and an undergrad that I did save. And they just were in a box that got transported from undergrad back to Lloyd, to Fredericton, back to Lloyd, to my house with my husband, to my current house that we have with my husband. And we were just cleaning out a room one day and I found them and oh no. So there's a couple of sections that I took pictures and sent it to pertinent parties and we laughed about it, and then we had a fire. Then we sent those out into the universe because I said, no, I don't need to be remembered for this.
I currently have, so Erin and I have been together for a very long time, since we were teenagers, and there was no texting or that kind of thing, so we wrote notes to each other, and we just passed them like letters. And so we do have a box of those that...
That's lovely.
Yeah, but I'm just going to have to, I haven't read them since they were written, honestly.
No?
But I think it's probably a good idea to, at one point, go back and just examine to see if those are a lasting legacy, or if they're fire pit worthy materials. I don't know. They're not quality literature by any means. It's just...
But they were lovely in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So for Emily, her happy is life's default state. And for Nick, existence is the default. What is your default? Or do you have an emotional goal? Or have you ever thought about that?
So I've read this question and I was going to fight you on some of the points, not actually. But I don't know that Emily's actually content. I feel like, or happy. I feel like she projects that so she doesn't rock the boat.
Totally.
And I think that when I was about that age, I probably was trying to do something similar to just, like, I liked being organized. I liked making sure that I presented myself very well and professionally, which is why if you look at me in my teen years, I was business casual, even in high school. And now a goal that I would have is just contentedness and just having moments and being able to stop and appreciate those moments where I was having a lovely conversation with my parents this week and just feeling happy that I had that time with them, or doing my job and feeling a sense of satisfaction in that, enjoying time with my colleagues, watching the new episode of my favorite show with my husband and us being able to do that together. Just having those lovely moments and just appreciating them and being content in them, because there is also a lot of hard stuff that happens, and so when you get those moments of joy, and that's the word, contentedness, and it happens often, and I'm very fortunate for that, and it's just making sure that I appreciate it and recognize it and acknowledge it in that moment when I feel that.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
That, like just a level.
For me, I like to think of happiness as a side effect rather than a goal. Because if I strive for happiness, I'm always unhappy. But if I strive for personal growth or learning, then there's contentedness or happiness that comes from that. but I think for me, happiness is pretty elusive. Like
Mhm.
I would guess that my default state is perhaps irritation or frustration.
Yeah.
And that's not as horrible as it seems,
Mhm.
because it motivates, it just, I think the people that are most happy, sometimes it's fleeting because happiness leads to stagnancy.
Mhm.
And if you're not grateful for it, if you don't notice it in the moment, then you don't have it. You don't have what you want, and then but for me, if I'm always a little bit frustrated, then I'm kind of motivated to do something different.
Mhm.
And I'm not the most adventurous person, but I am open to adventure. We try new things, we eat new things, we do all those things, and I think it's because we're not worried about protecting the happiness that we have.
Mhm.
We're open to discovering happiness
Mhm.
in other places,
Mhm.
maybe.
I can accept that. I can embrace that.
Yeah. So if you could choose to repeat or experience on loop any day like Emily does, which day would you choose? Or what idea of a day would you choose?
I have more than one option. I couldn't narrow it down. One thing that our dear listeners need to know is that there are a lot of Taylor Swift references in this book. And so that was very nostalgic for me. I'll come back to why in a minute. But the one that I would love to do over again and just appreciate the joy of that day, we had a great wedding day. It was lovely. Like, I woke up, I wasn't the one getting ready first, so I got to sleep in, but surrounded by people that I loved. The ceremony was great. Like, there's nothing that I would change about it. Although in retrospect, I would have a few more decorations in the church, but that is not make or break at all, because it was just time together, laughter. It was emotional. It was beautiful. It was a great day, and I wouldn't change anything about that day. But I've had some really cool opportunities. I sang in Notre Dame in Paris.
Wow.
When I had just finished undergrad, and so, like, that was just a magical day. And the time before that, getting ready, and we did a concert afterward, and just got to sit in the street and have a drink afterward and be like, this was the coolest day. And this summer I was able to go see Taylor Swift with my friends, and the opener was Paramore, and Paramore has been one of my favorite bands since I was just around Emily's age, and it was just a vibrant, happy day. So I'm fortunate that I have multiple days to pick from, when you just kind of get to sit back and feel like the luckiest person in the world, or you get to go a little bit beyond contentedness to just absolute euphoria, because it's the best day. It feels like the best day. So those are my options.
I like that. For me, my original thought was just any day that we've been into Disneyland. I love Disneyland, Disney World, and I'm striving to figure out what's the better way to do this. What's the fun way? What's the most efficient? I would have speeches at the age of 4. I would tell my children, we are going to pass this ride and this ride and this ride. We are not stopping, because that's not the most efficient way to do this day. Do not have a fit because we're driving or walking past this. We'll come back to it. Like very militant like. And so I would like to do, one of those kind of, for me, high stress, highly planned days in multiple different ways. I think there would be a lot of learning potential for me personally, and just, like you came to Disneyland for fun, not.
Mm-hmm. We have to manage the children, I understand.
Yeah. But now that you say the wedding day, I think that would be my ultimate pick as well, because I'm an only child, and Aaron and I had a planned elopement.
Oh, really?
And in the moment, it was a destination wedding before destination weddings were a thing, kind of. And so, in the moment, I didn't understand how heartbreaking that was for my mom.
Mm.
Because if my kids did that, and there are 2 of them, it would be very, very difficult for me. So I think it would be very cool to experience that day with my family, with just Aaron and I, like it was, in a bunch of different ways. And it was perfect. I wouldn't change anything in theory, but in hindsight, it must have been heartbreaking for my mom, and I would love an opportunity to kind of experience that for her and for me together. So, yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie About Time?
I have not.
I recommend it highly. It is another Groundhog type vibe, Groundhog Day type vibe, but I don't want to explain the whole premise of it. But there is time movement that happens, or time travel that happens in its own way, and the end idea is just learning instead to live in the moment and appreciate the moment and not have to relive things or retry things. And there's space for that, because as the movie shows it, sometimes you're like, I want to do that differently.
Totally.
But learning to appreciate the things that you have in the moments that you have and being mindful of your choices. It's just a really lovely movie that seems like a rom-com, but it's a family love type movie, and you might cry a lot.
Okay. I will check. Absolutely.
It's a beautiful movie.
I will check it out. So you mentioned Taylor Swift references. I am an adjacent Taylor, like I'm not personally a Taylor Swift fan, not because there's anything, just it's one of those things where my kids are such Taylor Swift fans that I was just like, let's leave this to them. And I have not personally gotten involved. So I didn't know that I Had a Marvelous Time Ruining Everything was a Taylor Swift reference until this morning. But I love the phrasing, I love the thought that comes to that, and Emily seems to kind of not completely plan out that this is going to be permanently tattooed onto her body, but I don't think it's the worst choice that she could have made.
No.
Absolutely. So do you have any tattoo stories that you would like to share?
I have. My mother would say too many tattoo stories to share. But let's see. I had a hard time thinking about which one I would like to talk about, but probably this big stained glass window. As I mentioned, I sing in Notre Dame Basilica, so this is inspired by that rose window. And the base, we chose something more wooden and farm-like. So I live in the country, my husband farms, I have a huge garden, and so it's kind of a mixture of my city musical language, adventure travel self, and then being very grounded in now my life on the farm. But then also growing up in a certain way, and the way that sometimes things break and things shatter and things evolve, and that's why the stained glass window has certain breaks in it. But it's still very beautiful, and it still doesn't make it worse, it just makes it different, and how you learn and evolve through all of that. So that then transforms into this side where you have my garden, and this is like a garden fence, and you have all of the squash, and just the evolution of being a city person and a musician, a classical musician and a classical singer, and now you can find me riding Kubota and tilling my garden. So it's kind of the contrast between the two things, but ultimately it's the contentedness of where I am, and the gratitude for what has brought me here, and that's that.
I love that. I find those are the best, in my opinion, most meaningful, like just most beautiful tattoos is when it's just a reflection of something so profound.
Well, and for Notre Dame, there had been things going on in my life that I knew that tour was happening. It was a choir tour. I knew it was happening, and I wasn't doing well. And so I had to drop things so that I could finish my degree. And part of it was all of the fundraising that went into going, so I had to tell them that I couldn't go. And then it worked out that a few people had to drop out at the last minute, And so they messaged me and said, hey, would you still like to come? It's happening in 3 weeks, but would you still like to come? And they gave me a discount on the price, and 3 weeks later I found myself singing in Notre Dame. And one of the songs, this is Cantique de Jean Racine, and I remember in that song during the rehearsal I just sat down and cried because I said, this should not be happening, I should not be here, but I was, and it all worked out the way that it was supposed to work out. So yeah, a lot of emotion behind that.
I love that. That seems like a great place to end the first portion of our podcast. All right, so the second part of this, we're going to do this a little bit differently with the food, because I have to tell you that there were many food references in this book, but I didn't like any of the options.
Okay.
So there were things like, it was like typical teenage fare, like chicken strips with ranch and ketchup, which is not super exciting to me. There was a bunch of coffee references. One of the ones that was pretty specific was a mocha with extra chocolate and double whipped cream, which sounds interesting, but I don't think either of us would like that, so I did not make that. There was, of course, the purple unicorn cake
Yes.
with glitter in the frosting. I was very tempted to make a cake with glitter in the frosting because I'm a big glitter fan, but that didn't happen either. There was also donuts, pepperoni pizza, pasta, and garlic bread, but there was none of that I was all that excited about. But this book was set in Nebraska.
Are you giving me potatoes?
Well, Nebraska is the Cornhusker state.
Of course it is.
So I made a sweet corn cake, but I'm not going to show it in this moment because I do believe it might have been a complete fail.
Got your spoon if you want to try it.
Technically. Okay.
We're going to film this at the end,
Okay.
and then put it in the bloopers because
Great.
I think it might be a complete fail. All right, so it is a sweet corn cake. It is this color because I used coconut sugar
Okay.
instead of regular sugar. In hindsight, perhaps I should have chosen a different recipe because in the recipe picture, they had scooped the cake up like with a ice cream, like they were round
So it's, like,
balls
thicker?
of cake. And so I have no idea if it just is supposed to look like that, a little lighter, or if it's a fail. But let's try it and see. It's cooked in a water bath. It has masa flour and cornmeal in it.
That's a lot of different types of corn.
And then, then I put the frozen corn pieces through the food processor to kind of whiz them up a little bit. There's no eggs, no regular flour, a little bit of heavy cream.
Mm-hmm.
It's a puzzling recipe.
I like that there's masa flour though. That's how I make tortillas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Erin has recently become a tamales connoisseur.
Oh my goodness. Tell him to try it with sugar one day.
Okay.
My abuelo used to put sugar on his, even though they're savory, he would put sugar on it.
Okay. I will pass that on.
Try it out.
Okay, here we go. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. I could take the masa.
Mm-hmm. It's softer than I would have expected, but perhaps that's from a water bath.
Mm-hmm. It's nice and sweet. The flavor is nice. It's corny.
It is corny. It is corny. Or sorry, the Cornhusker state. There wasn't really too much about Nebraska in there, which was a little bit puzzling to me, but I think it's probably because Lynn Painter is from Nebraska and she lives in Omaha. I'm not sure they even said what city it was, but I kind of
they were in Omaha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was that scene, there was a few scenes where they were downtown and just loving downtown. And Emily said something about adoring the city or just loving the city. Is there a city that you love?
I do love Paris. I've been twice now. Twice in one trip, and then This past summer I was in Paris, and I've been to different parts of Paris, but I grew up speaking French. I've taught in French, and so being able to use my French and just walk through Montmartre and try the food and listen to the sounds. Also, one thing about Paris is that they have the best behaved dogs I've ever seen.
Really?
Like, I don't know if everybody has to go through a mandatory class before they're allowed to go. Like, they are walking around. Many times they were off leash, just walking through crowds and crowds of people beside their human, and they were not distracted by the smells, the sounds, the people. Like, they were just laser focused on going from point A to point B. And it was constant. It was incredible to see, but just the sights and the sounds, and I know people make fun of the smells of Paris, but I genuinely mean like the bakeries and the breads and just the delicious food and the music. Like, it's just a very magical place. And for being somewhere that I definitely did not grow up in, it feels very comfortable overall to me. What about you?
I think I haven't traveled a ton, but I would choose Quebec City.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there in the winter, I've been there in the summer, and it is just a completely different place with a bit of the European flair, and I love buskers and sitting outside in the cafes and that kind of thing. So
It's very similar to certain France pieces. Like, it just, that's why I love Quebec and Montreal as well, is that it felt very European before I'd ever gone to Europe. But I said, this is what it must be like, and it's true. Just little cafes and the music. And I love, Quebec in the snow. It's just gorgeous too.
we once slept in the ice hotel, which was one of the best, worst experiences of our family life, in that it was so cool.
Yeah.
And we will never, ever do it again.
No. You did it the one time, and that's all you needed to do.
It's a fantastic one-time experience. All right, so to our third segment of the podcast is public libraries. So I'm excited that you are a board member for the Lloydminster Public Library. What is your favorite thing about LPL?
I love all of the programming. I feel so excited that there are so many opportunities for, especially for youngsters, to become involved and to come, and they're excited to come to the library. You were talking about the summer when you were in the parade, and there was that the kids were just like, the library, and you're just so connected to it, and they are so passionate about it already, and that just makes me so happy, because as a kid I grew up in Lloydminster, and we would go to the library downtown, and I just loved and it's just not a silly memory, but it's just, they had these like plastic yellow and red and blue chairs on the floor.
I know them, yes.
And you would walk downstairs and that plastic smell would hit my nostrils, and I'd be like, the library! And it was just very nostalgic for me. So it's very exciting for me to see all of these kids already be so passionate about reading and learning, and I love coming with my nieces to do crafts and all of those different things. My niece comes to the dance parties, and it's just, there's so much available, and there's so much action at the library all the time, and it just makes me very happy that so many people love this library.
Me too. I was here for a brief time yesterday morning, and I encountered a family that I know, and they were so excited and pleasantly surprised. They said, like, there's so many things to do here. And
yeah.
All the time. All the time. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see whatever this cake maybe more honey or something would be nice to it.
The standards are moved when it's gluten free.
Okay, no, it's cardboardy.
Yeah, I don't think I would eat a ton of that. But it's not disgusting.